Right.
right? And then I called you Keisha because I felt at that moment in time I needed a sisterhood, right? And I think for everyone here, they felt they needed some type of sisterhood.
So my first instinct immediately when you called me was like Suzanne. Like I gotta call Suzanne.
I got nominated.
Suzanne.
I was next.
And then we were like, let's call Hesna. Because not only is it just, for me, the need for us to gather as women and have a sisterhood in that way, but also for us, because we have such a common experience in our lives.
People love to know, how we are families and how we are connected.
It is our responsibility to support one another. So I think that when we think about our parents, that each one of our parents felt that way.
One of my lessons from my grandfather, is how we as a people, elevate.
I didn't realize that, yes, your mother actually kind of mentored my mother. There was a big sister relationship there. I had no idea about that. And that definitely your mother did as well.
And we have a really special opportunity because we've been groomed by very special people.
Yes.
And not only are we relishing in our own sisterhood and helping ourselves, but we have such an opportunity to help others.
Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. That's a little exposure to Daughters of the Movement. And we have our special guest today, Stacy Lynch. She's the founder of this Daughters of the Movement, as you well see. And as all these ladies, you can feel the warmth, the glory, and famous Daughters of the Movement. Welcome to the show, Stacy.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
especially
Thank
happy about this because my girl Dominique Sharpton's in there. She's the
Absolutely.
youngest.
She's our baby sister.
Yeah, I
She
watched
is
her
our
grow
baby sister.
grow up, and that's my baby.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So tell us about this venture that you brought everybody aware of.
Sure. It's a long story, so just walk with me as we
Yeah,
talk about this.
of course.
My father passed away in 2013,
Right.
and we had this glorious funeral at Riverside Church. 2,000 people were there
Riverside.
at Riverside Church,
Way to go.
and so many people attended. So many folks spoke about their relationship with my dad. Jesse Jackson was there, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, a number of people. It was phenomenal. But then, when the funeral is over, things get very quiet, right? And people tend to go back to their own lives. And I would get a text message every once in a while from Keisha Sutton
Sweetheart.
or Gina Belafonte saying, I'm thinking about you. How are you doing? And in 2014, 2015, I reached out to Gina and I said, there's something in my spirit moving me. I want to create this coalition of women that grew up in households similar to mine, that had parents as public figures, whether in the civil rights movement, in labor, or in politics. And I said, I want to organize a dinner, Gina. I have a sponsor that's willing to pay for it. And the sponsor was really me. And Gina said, I love the idea. I'm going to call my sister Suzanne. And Suzanne Kay is the daughter of Diane Carroll. And Gina also reached out to Hesna Muhammad, the daughter of Ozzy and Ruby Dee, right? And then I called Keisha Sutton, and I pitched the same thing. I said, Keisha, I want to create this safe space, this wonderful space where we can kind of share our moments and our lives with each other, love on each other. And I'm hosting this dinner. I have a sponsor. Are there some other women that you want to invite? And she reached out to our little sister, Dominic Sharpton
Yeah.
and Ashley Sharpton, as well as Ilyasa Shabazz, daughter of Malcolm X.
Yeah.
We also had Leah Daughtry at the first dinner, and Jennifer Jones Austin,
Yeah. Okay.
and Karen Watson, and quite a few folks. And it was an amazing dinner with about, I want to say, 15 beautiful women. And we just loved on each other, talked about our parents, how they work together, and how we're all connected in some way. And we didn't want to let that feeling go. And so um, we started organizing dinners every month, meeting with each other, um, and then just talking about how our day went, what's going on in our lives, talking about relationships and work, and just really supporting each other. And then I think the organization really came together when we had a speaking engagement one night in March downtown. And it was organized by Gina Belafonte. And it was a horrible night. Like, it was rainy, snowy. We thought 20 people would be there. And so we all showed up, and there were close to 200 people in the audience. And there was a reporter from Elle magazine that covered it. And Elle printed the story, and the rest is history. We continued to stay connected. Literally after this interview, I'm going out to dinner with my girls, with my sisters. We call each other sisters, and we support each other. We have a group text where we say good morning to each other every morning, and we check in on each other and we support each other. They have been so supportive of me during this journey running for city council. So they are truly my sisters.
Well, I'm going to play the second part.
Yes.
You probably repeat exactly what you said here. Run item 2 before we get Graham on Skype, and come back to us again. I want people to pay attention to this piece. It's really Gina Belafonte.
Gina Belafonte, the daughter of
She's
Harry
in this
Belafonte.
piece, and yourself.
Yes.
I think, run item 2. We'll be right back at you.
Greetings, everyone. I am Brittany Packnett Cunningham. I am an activist, a writer, an educator, and host of the podcast Undistracted. And I am so thrilled to be with this incredible gathering of sisters known to you and to many of us as the daughters of the movement. We've got so much beauty here, so much brilliance here, so much wisdom that is gathered here. And I'm excited for us to dig into the things that really matter. We've already been chatting, checking our makeup. Yes, sissing each other. So let's keep having that family conversation. And I'd love to make sure that everybody watching gets to know exactly who you're going to be able to hear from. So I'd love for each of you, starting with Miss Gina, to tell us who you are and tell us why co-creating Daughters of the Movement was so important to you.
Well, thank you so much, Brittany. So thrilled to see you and to be gathered here with my sisters. And thanks to Nan for giving us this platform once again. I'm Gina Belafonte. I'm an artivist and the executive director of Sankofa.org. It's a nonprofit organization founded by my father, Harry Belafonte, that works with artists and thought leaders in partnership with grassroots organizations, using art as a tool to educate, motivate, and activate artists and allies in service of grassroots movements. Well, listen, my sister called me and said, I want to have a gathering of some other women who have a legacy that they hold, and there's a common bond between us, and many of us don't know each other. And so when she calls, I answer. And in developing and creating this space that we hold together has become quite a sacred space for us, a beautiful sisterhood, and an opportunity for us to really be in community with each other and commune in a way where there's some shortcuts because we have a shared lived experience that some folks don't understand the nuances of. I will let my sister Stacy tell the origin story and explain a little bit more about who she is. But this is a sisterhood I hold very sacred and dear to my heart, and I'm grateful that Stacy called me.
That's perfect. Stacey, why don't we come to you next?
Absolutely. And I'm going to say it again, Brittany, I'm a big fan of yours.
We all are.
The feeling is very mutual.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so tell us this origin story. What, you know, it's,
Absolutely.
superheroes have origin stories, right? So I want to know you all.
Well, listen, I'll say we're all superheroes. You know, originally when people ask, or they would say, you created Daughters of the Movement, and I've shifted that narrative because this is something we've all created together, right? In 2013, my father, Bill Lynch, who was the mastermind behind electing the first African-American mayor of New York City, David N. Dinkins, senior advisor to Nelson Mandela, Hillary Clinton, Jesse Jackson, the list goes on and on and on. He passed away in 2013.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, a big, powerful,
but I had it in my
all-encompassing figure like that leaves a hole in your life and in many people and their lives, right? And so, you know, for a few years, you know, I almost felt like, I don't want to say lost, but I was like in a different headspace and zone, right? And in 2017, I'll never forget this moment. I was working at City Hall as a senior advisor, which, you know, Brittany, I know, you know, in politics and organizing, that's, you know, a tough field. And so, you know, I felt like I was in a space and a surrounding where people didn't know my life experience, who I am as a person. And I said, I need my sisters, right? And I called Gina Belafonte and I said, hey, G, I call her G. All right. I said, hey, G, I have this idea about, you know, coming together with other women with very similar life experiences. I have a sponsor, and the sponsor was really me, right? I have a sponsor that's willing to pay for dinner. Let's convene a bunch of women. And Gina called her network of women, and I reached out to my fellow sister, Keisha Sutton James. And I said the same thing. Hey, Keisha, I have this idea about creating really a safe space for women to come together and share, you know, things that are important to them, cry a little bit, fight a little bit, right? Come back together as sisters. And Brittany, it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Welcome back. A few technical difficulties, but Stacy, this is the reason why you're running for councilman. It's your calling.
It's my calling. It's my calling.
Calling you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I come from not just a political home, right? My dad, Bill Lynch, was in many ways a public servant.
Right.
Right? He worked in labor, and not that many people know this, but he grew up in Mattituck, Long Island. My dad grew up in Mattituck, Long Island, which is on the northern shore of Long Island. It's way, way out there. And his father, my grandfather, got very ill, because he worked on a farm where the conditions were not great, right? And it affected his health. And my dad, I believe, was motivated by that, and started to organize the farm workers on my dad, on my grandfather's. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a whole story. I have to, at some point, we'll do a documentary about his life. but he was kidnapped, mobilizing. He was kidnapped, mobilizing farm workers in Mattituck, Long Island.
Wow.
And, you know, my dad shared that story with me before he passed.
What year are we talking?
It must have been in the
30s?
mid to late 40s, maybe early 50s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So these are black farmers?
Black and Latino farmers.
Ah, okay.
And some Polish as well,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, wow.
And so he was kidnapped, and my father described this story and this experience to me actually a few months before he passed, because my father always had, like, you know, I would call it a birthmark on his hand. And I always assumed it was a birthmark. And one day I said to him, "What is that on your hand?" And he said to me, "I was kidnapped when I was organizing farm workers. And the individuals that kidnapped him used a cigarette lighter to burn his hand." Right? And that mark stayed with him, obviously, for the rest of his life, right? And I think for a certain degree, that was a reminder for my dad, and now passed on to me and my brother, the importance of, like, human rights, right? Public service, equity for all individuals. And, you know, even though my father lived, you know, a good life, you know, he came from a working class family, he understood, just as I do, that if I'm okay, right, I want my next door neighbor to be okay as well. If they're not okay, if they're lacking health care services, if they're lacking affordable housing, right, if they're unable to find a job, then this ultimately affects me. And so that lynch fight has continued from one generation to the next. And so I decided to run for city council because I think we're in a critical moment in time.
So you're bringing to the Harlem community all this legacy. And,
Yes.
well, tell us, you know, people don't probably remember your father best for campaigning and bringing David Dinkins to it.
Yes,
all right?
yes.
We might make a note of that.
Most
This is the
definitely,
daughter
yes.
of the man that got us the first black mayor
Yes,
in New York.
yes.
And now we're campaigning for Eric Adams, the
Yes.
second black man to be
There you
elected
go.
in New York.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, my
So
dad.
Graham, I guess you can chime in at this point. You know, Graham and I, you know, Graham is part of the 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement who care.
Okay.
Graham, meet Stacy Lynch.
Stacy, it's good to meet you.
It's a pleasure.
You, and you're carrying on a legacy.
Thank you so much.
I've worked with Ilyasa some years ago on a project. I remember listening to Bernice King
Yes,
when she spoke of her father,
yes,
and then how she felt when she lost her father, and then her mother took up the gauntlet, and she said she was growing up without mother and father, and what that did to her. And she was upset that our people had not moved forward since the 60s. But you ladies have a pivotal role, and I'm glad you're running for city council. This year, there are so many slots that are going to be vacated. And the city is in a pivotal position right now, and it's imperative that we have good leadership. I remember your father working on the campaign with David Dinkins, and just being with him, the exhilaration I had the night of the election and being in the hotel with him and his wife and children up in the suite.
absolutely.
Those are historic moments, and bringing our children along in the process. Whenever I could, I brought my sons with me to meet Nelson Mandela and different people. And we have to carry on that legacy. You will win.
Thank you.
You will win. I was talking with Eric this morning. We hope to have him on next week on the show. But this is where New York is, and we have to step it up a number of notches, not just a notch. We have to step it up a number of notches with regard to everything around the people in the city: education, policing, health, housing. All of these things have to be dealt with, and we need the people that really care about people
That's
to
right.
take these positions, and you are one of those people.
Thank you so
True
much.
Harlemite.
That's right. That's
All right.
right.
So what are some of the programs that you're thinking about bringing to the Harlem community?
Well, listen, I'm really passionate about education.
Okay.
Yeah. I did a
Your
little.
mother teaches.
My mom is an educator. My father was known as the Rumple Genius, but she was really the genius in the house. Right? My mom was an educator. She taught at a little nursery school in the community called Mayfield Nursery School, and
She taught at convent too.
she taught at. I think she taught at convent. I'm not sure.
Deacon Martin says.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Deacon
Well, that's
Martin
something I didn't know about my mom. You see, but they both really instilled in us the importance of education.
Right. Right.
I graduated from Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia.
All right.
That's right, the greatest HBCU on the planet.
Okay, I hear that.
Right.
And then I attended Quinnipiac University School of Law and practiced law for about 10 years.
Oh, great. Oh, you're a
Yes,
lawyer.
I'm a lawyer.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
I'm a lawyer.
fantastic.
What was your
Absolutely.
specialty?
Absolutely. I specialized in contracts. I work with
Okay.
an entertainment law firm called the Marshall Firm. It was a boutique law firm that worked with artists like Mary J. Blige,
Really?
Paul Simon, Michael Jackson. It was an amazing experience, and it really helped me with critical thinking, right? And just really analyzing stuff and thinking about it before I regurgitate or speak,
Well,
right?
I think you took that trait from your dad.
Absolutely, absolutely,
And
absolutely.
that's supposedly a tough industry,
It's a
isn't it?
very tough industry, very tough industry, just like politics. And but to answer your question, education is critically important to me. I realize that there are areas within District 7 that have a lot of resources, right? But there are also areas throughout the district where there are pockets and gaps.
Yes.
And one of the things that I definitely want to do is bring additional community schools into our district. I think it's critically important that we provide not just the proper educational resources for our kids, but also provide support for their families, right? If you have a healthy home, a healthy mom and dad who's working, right, has health care, has the support that they need, then more than likely you'll have a healthy student sitting in a classroom
Yes.
ready to learn.
Success.
Success, exactly,
success.
exactly. And so I want to really focus on creating an education plan for the district, which my understanding has never happened. I spoke to educators throughout the district just to get an idea if they actually spoke with their representative to figure out what needs they need in this community, right? And creating a cohesive plan from Washington Heights, West Harlem to the Upper West Side.
Well, we have to help you. You have to help me raise funds for the Boys and Girls Club
I would
of
love
Harlem,
that. I would love that.
which is right up the street from
I would love that.
Convent.
Listen, one of the things on my bucket list is to create a public-private fund, right?
Okay.
Where we have some of these private entities like Columbia University, City College, New York Presbyterian, really being great neighbors, right, to this community and contribute to the success of this community. So I really want to create an education fund
Okay.
with public and private resources.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
If I may, one of the things that I would like to see in the education curriculum is to introduce a second language other than English
Absolutely.
to the Black American population.
Absolutely.
I mean, we spend a lot of money for foreign-speaking persons to learn English. So they end up getting a little ahead of the natural-born person, especially in Harlem, that only speaks English. So Spanish people come in, the Asians come in, Italian, Greeks, Jewish, and they all have these pots of money put in after-school programs, put in regular adult learning programs, and they're free. And yet and still, our children, when it comes to the marketing for jobs, one of the tools that they don't have is that they're not bilingual.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would really hope that you would consider that
Absolutely.
and have a part of that into the curriculum.
Absolutely. I mean,
Living in New York, you almost have to speak Spanish.
living in
Yes.
New York, you almost have to speak Spanish.
Right.
I mean, in high school, I actually was fluent in Spanish, right?
Oh, good.
But I have to get back there.
Yes,
I have to get back
because
there.
you didn't use it.
I didn't use it, right?
Yes, exactly.
And I actually learned not just in the classroom, but talking to the women that worked in the
Right,
school.
the conversation
The
Spanish.
conversation
Yes,
Spanish.
it's important.
It's important. And in order for our kids to be competitive, not just in the city, but throughout the country,
throughout the country,
and the
the
world,
world.
they have to learn a second language.
Yes.
So,
Es necesario para tú estudiar la lengua, señora, en español y otras lenguas. Yo estudié la lengua en la escuela secundaria 54 años pasados.
See, they
See?
might think, well,
Well, the most I can do is say.
every time
sí.
I
Sí, yes. En el estudio español en Escuela,
Es-
muchos años aquí,
Sa-
here, and, sí. So and at that time,
I know,
but
I know.
no one does it anymore
I know.
like that.
But I mean, listen. I think the most important thing that I can do as a council member is obviously lead by example.
Exactly.
And that's learning a second language, and then also obviously investing in our students and adults that want to learn a second
Yes.
language.
well, you look Hispanic, don't you?
I do.
I went to DR, me and my wife, and they started speaking. They're always speaking Spanish
Yes,
to Bev.
yes, yes.
You know,
Yeah.
oh, you know,
Yeah.
they're surprised I wasn't Dominican.
Yeah. But you know, we all come from the African, right.
All one pot.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So it's a blending thing.
Yes.
It's
Absolutely.
gracious to have you here today.
Thank you.
And I mean, this piece, everybody should see this. Daughters of the Movement. It really goes much further than this. You've got the daughters,
Across the
Keisha,
yes.
Ayasa,
Ilyasa Shabazz.
Ilyasa Shabazz.
Yes, my sister.
And these are beautiful women, all in all.
Yes.
And they have a beautiful spirit. You can feel it.
Yeah.
So I recommend this to everyone.
Yeah, no,
All right.
listen, I love my sisters.
And Dominique Sharpton is the
Yes.
Spitfire and
Yes.
the whole crew there.
Absolutely. And, you know, they're all very talented in their own right.
Yes, yes.
Keisha Sutton, James, she is currently the campaign manager
Mm-hmm.
for hopefully our next
Yes.
Manhattan
Alvin
VA,
Bragg, yes.
Alvin Bragg.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, right,
Which,
right. That's
you
right.
know,
Yes, we're
Yeah,
definitely like to see him
yes.
as the Manhattan District Attorney.
Absolutely,
Yes, so working-
absolutely. Would be the first African American to serve as the Manhattan District Attorney.
Yes.
Ilyasa Shabazz, I think, if she hasn't already, she is releasing a book, another
Oh,
book.
okay.
That's right, too.
Yes,
Rhonda.
she's a writer and author, and then also, you know, taking care of her parents' legacy, particularly with the Betty Shabazz and Malcolm Shabazz Educational Center in Harlem, just outside of my district, but still serves
Right.
those that live in District 7.
Yes.
And then Gina Belafonte, she's the executive director of Sankofa.org, which brings politics and entertainment together. She does a ton of stuff around voter registration and voter engagement. She's a powerhouse. And Hesna Muhammad is a photographer and filmmaker.
That's right. That's right.
Suzanne Kay is a photographer, well, more so a filmmaker. She is doing a documentary, knock on wood, about her mother and her mother's life, which will be amazing.
We got a film studio here.
Exactly, exactly. And
You're
then,
you're the lawyer of
Hey,
it.
I'm the lawyer of the group. That's right.
Make sure the
That's
contracts
right.
are
That's
good.
right. And then we have our baby Dominic Sharpton.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
she's
Who is doing so many things. She impresses us every minute of the day as a mother, as someone that works closely with her dad, Reverend Al Sharpton, and is a powerhouse in her own right. So we have a wonderful coalition of Black women working together.
It's amazing sitting here and listening to you because I really didn't pay very much attention to you, but your father,
Yes.
it just took me back 30 years in terms of your dad. I too worked on the campaign for David Dinkins, but prior to that, I ran for city council
Yes.
in the 9th Councilmatic District. I didn't win, but your dad was very supportive.
Yeah.
And I think he had a relationship with my dad at the time, but my dad had passed on earlier. So he knew the legacy of my father. So this just gives me chills.
It gives you chills.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
To just look at what we're saying about the daughters.
Yes.
And I too have 2 daughters.
Yes.
And they have picked up a lot of traits from their dad, who was a little more international but was grounded in Harlem, served and active with Planning Board 10, Community Board 10. And my parents had a bakery. And if your dad was here, he'd tell you about
Which
it.
I went to as a
Yes.
kid.
Which bakery?
The Trilani Bakery, the hot meat
On
patties
146th
and
and
all
8th
that.
Avenue?
Yes.
Coming out of Colonial Pool?
Yes,
I
the
remember that.
Colonial.
Yes.
Yes. So
Remember
we're
that
talking
place?
about- You see what I'm saying? It's like, I'm listening to you.
Yes.
And my 2 daughters are still in Harlem, and they're professionals in their own right.
I
Oh,
love
talk-
it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
Judge Sweeney.
yes.
I love
She
it.
has a daughter that's a judge.
I
One of the
love
best.
it.
And I'm very proud of her. My other daughter was in management.
I love it.
So it's really, and if I may, let me just say this.
Absolutely.
During the time that I was rearing my children, men were dominant. Women were expected to stay in a certain place. And one of the things that my dad would always say to me, don't be nobody's secretary. And I didn't understand that. He said, no, you have to go to school. My mom too, because we had our own business. So I didn't learn the art of baking. My brothers did. I learned the art of inventory, management, negotiation, and being active politically because my father was from the Caribbean.
Same.
So therefore, the politics was instilled. We went to church, and on Sundays, we would watch the parade that took place coming down from 145th Street, going all the way down to 7th Avenue, straight up.
The West Indian Day Parade?
The West Indian Day Parade was
You s-
there, but
it's
it
in
was
Brooklyn now.
Marcus Garvey.
That's right.
All of them were out there.
Wow.
So I'm looking and I'm listening, and I am so humbly proud of you.
Thank you.
Because during the time that I ran for city council, women were not really supported as much, but your dad
Yes.
came out
Yes.
and he says, I may get in trouble for this, but I guess now listening and looking at you,
Yeah.
it was because he had that passing the torch.
Absolutely.
He had, I didn't remember you as the daughter, but I knew he had a son.
Yes.
So he passed that torch to you
Yes.
to tell you that you had the right to get out there and
Absolutely.
fight for people's rights
Absolutely.
without any fear.
Absolutely.
So I am really, really happy today in 2021
Yes.
to be sitting here talking to the daughter of Bill Lynch.
Oh, thank you so
who
much.
was a power broker, and I ran for state assembly.
Yes.
That's the first time I met him.
Oh, wow.
And he came and he said, girl, you got chutzpah.
Yeah.
That's what he told me. He
I
says,
love it.
you have chutzpah.
I love it.
Running in the 71st Assembly
I love
District
it. I love it.
against the county leader,
I love it.
but he supported.
Yes.
And little did I know that that was an angel because my dad had long gone past.
Yeah.
So he was that inspiration, and
Yeah.
he would talk about strategy.
Yeah.
And he would say, you keep your head up.
Yes.
And there was a group of men that surrounded me that said, you don't have to be anything other than the lamb.
Yes.
because we got the pit bulls to take care of you. And it's really good
Yeah.
to see. And so I'm saying to you
Yeah,
that he planted this dust for you for today.
absolutely.
And I sit here as a living testimony to say
Thank you.
that whatever I can do to support you,
Thank you.
I will be doing that for you in your councilmatic district.
thank
I
you.
will make calls and I will do that. So I've picked up another support
Thank you.
person to
Thank you.
support.
Thank you so much.
And when I heard that Calvin Martin was supporting you,
Yes.
and that's how I found out. He says, "Oh, you have to help her. You have to help."
Yes.
So I'm going
Calvin
to
is
say
a-
to God be the glory.
Thank you so much, Deacon Martin.
Yes.
Yes.
Who's a member of my church, Convent Avenue Baptist Church, and
Yes.
and your church as well.
Right.
Yes.
That's
Well, my
home.
church
That's
is
home.
Baptist,
That's
Bethany
right.
Baptist
That's
in
right.
Harlem.
That's
That's
right.
why you're
Yes.
here.
That's right.
Yes,
right.
that's
That's
why
right.
you're here,
That's
because
right.
he contacted me
That's
and he
right.
said that.
That's right. That's
And
right.
I
I've
said,
been going to
I know
convent.
Lynch.
That's right.
Lynch.
That's
I said, Bill Lynch, Bill Lynch.
That's
I
right.
said, but I know he had a son. I didn't know about a daughter.
Yeah.
He says, oh,
Yeah.
sweeting. He has a daughter and she's running. And I said,
Yes,
okay.
yeah. I mean,
Yes.
listen, with my dad, I think he is passing it on
Yes.
in many ways,
Yes.
right? He understood the importance of
Yes.
women in politics.
Yes.
If we're really honest, my dad was actually mentored by women in politics.
Yes.
Dorothy Height was his mentor.
Dorothy Height.
Yes.
Wow.
Dorothy
Big
Height
women.
was his mentor.
Yes.
Betty Shabazz would come to the house often. Dr. Betty
Ooh,
Shabazz
wow.
would come to the
Yeah,
house
yeah.
often
Yes.
Yeah.
and advise my father.
Yes.
She was a mentor to my dad.
Yeah.
Obviously, Hazel Dukes.
Hazel Dukes is
Yes.
another person.
Yes.
Yes. Hazel
Yes.
You
Dukes.
might mention Betty.
Yes.
Yes.
People don't realize Betty raised 6 girls.
Yes.
And Cunningham is that Cunningham, the mother. She was very active.
Oh, wow.
Lived up on the hill.
Okay.
And she was another active
Okay.
person in
Okay.
politics
Okay.
that was out there. I can't think of
Okay.
her first name, but Cunningham.
And I remember Marion Wright Edelman as
Yes.
well from the Children's Defense Fund.
Yes.
She would often mentor.
See, you going way back.
I'm going way back.
You remember
But-
Elois Banks and
yes,
Jimmy Banks?
Yes, I remember Jimmy Banks and
Yes.
Lois. Yeah, absolutely. And they would all advise my father, and he surrounded himself with a lot of smart women.
Yes, he did.
To advise him on campaigns and races and
Yes,
politics. So,
yes.
you know, my father was a huge supporter of empowering women. He was a feminist in his own right,
Yes.
probably before, you know,
Yeah, before it became-
generations, right? Exactly. And would actually encourage me to sit in rooms with him and the mayor to listen and understand New York City politics.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm sure he's looking down right now and is very proud of
Yes,
his
he's
daughter.
very proud.
I think
He's-
most black men are feminists.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I
yes,
mean,
yes, yes.
we pay homage to our
Yes,
women.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
you know, I told you God's a female.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
That's from Dr. Ben, matter of fact.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
boy, I tell you.
All right,
see, look at
let's
this.
move on. And last night we had a mayoral campaign. Well, Reverend Sharpton interviewed several of the candidates running for mayor, and I would just have a short piece of Eric Adams running for mayor. Play that third piece, and we'll come back. Graham, stay tuned. I got the last 5 minutes of Eric.
All right. Okay.
All right? So we'll come back and we'll talk about Eric a little bit.
Girl, this is no accident.
You were asking about, there was a final question you asked me that was attached to the homelessness. Homelessness falls into 3 categories, and everybody try to look at it as one. It falls into children and families, that's our largest population that's going into shelters. Now, children and families, we need to keep them in housing. We need to raise the vouchers, go after those landlords that are not taking vouchers. We need to make it too expensive to deny people with vouchers. Then you have single adults. Those single adults we can put into micro units, we can do new SROs. There's a lot of opportunities for single adults, and we need to have returning citizen housing, people who are coming home from correctional facilities. That's why I'm so proud that formerly incarcerated organizations have endorsed me because of my work. I used to walk through correctional facilities upstate, and they used to yell out if I'm behind the bars, that's that brother from 100 Blacks. He's going to always fight for us, and I really appreciate that. Then mental health. The mental health crisis is a downstream model. This is what we do. Someone has mental health illnesses, they do something illegal, we arrest them. That's why 48% of the people at Rikers Island have mental health issues. We arrest them, then when they get out, they put them back on the street. Or we take them to a psychiatric facility. We give them medicine for one day and put them back in the street. That is so, it's almost comical. This is like the Keystone Cops. What we need to do is invest in Fountain House type organization, wraparound services, supportive housing, make sure they don't use the emergency room as primary care, find out their needs, give them dignity and respect so they don't have to go to shelters and be abused. We can stop the homeless crisis problem if we build trust with people who are living in our subways, living on our streets, and don't have any place to go. We can turn it around.
Lastly, out of the 8 candidates for the Democratic nomination, what makes you uniquely skilled to be the next mayor of the city of New York, and why we ought to vote for you?
We don't need a manager, we need a visionary. And the next mayor must be a person who has gone through a lot. A person who was a former dishwasher, a person who went to school at night, a person who jumped the turnstiles because he didn't have a token back then. A person who used to run numbers at 12 to help mother pay the rent. A person who carried a garbage bag full of clothing to school because he needed a change of clothing just in case the marshals threw him out. A person who has been abused by police officers but also lost a good friend to gun violence and became a police officer because civil rights leaders asked him to do so. A person that marched when Eleanor Bumpus was shot and killed. A person that was part of NAN and started on the founding membership and stood next to you painting crack houses to get crack out of our community. A person that understands to sit in hospitals with people who are in need. A person that did not discover you when it was time to run for mayor, but discovered you when it was time to be there by your side. The next mayor must be a person who has gone through a lot so he can help people who is going through a lot right now. That's why I'm qualified for this job. This is the Esther 4 and 14 moment. God made me for such a time like this. To report that I was disruptive, so please, don't do that.
Last question, what's your favorite vegan restaurant?
Uptown Vegan, 125th Street. I'm down the block all the time. Getting that jerk vegan chicken, some chippies, some sweet potatoes. You know, that's my spot, right down the block. Uptown Vegan. I'm going to take Tom Swansea, and Ivan is there.
All right. Eric Adams, thank you.
And that's me on camera. We had a good time last night. As you can see, Eric's a homeboy, and you know, he's of the people. And that's what we need in New York, you know, second black mayor, and that's who you should be voting for, Eric Adams. Graham, you have to wait for a delay. There's a minute behind on.
I'm here.
Did you see the whole thing?
Yes. Well, I guess not. It's still running.
Well, you missed the best part, the ending there.
Well,
but you heard most of it, and you know Eric. So
I knew Eric when he was a rookie cop.
Yeah.
And we had to sit him down. We had to lay the land out for him, and we told him, if you don't take our advice, you won't make it through. But he listened. And you can see where he is and what he is today. Eric, and just as the lady sitting before you, everybody should understand that their responsibility in life is to teach somebody else.
Pass it to us.
You don't need a degree to teach, but you need to share what you have.
Yeah.
And Eric got this. He saw it firsthand. See, the guys that trained me in the Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, there's the guy in that picture, in that famous picture, there's a guy with a heavy mustache standing to the right of Martin Luther King. His name was Jesse Dukes. He was one of the detectives that trained me. He was a transit police detective. Black police officers, all those men wearing white koofies in those photographs at the Washington, they were police officers. They were there to protect Martin Luther King. There were hundreds of black police officers. And those are the men that trained me and trained Eric. So it's a matter of passing on the legacy, just as the ladies before you are doing it. We have to pass on our legacy. We have to tell our story. Eric has been through stuff that most people don't know about. He doesn't talk about it, but he keeps it moving. But he understands what people are going through in this city. He didn't just show up to talk about stop and frisk. We dealt with the governor on stop and frisk in 1999. That was last century. The governor wrote a report on it and said it was no good. It was 100 blacks in law enforcement. This is what some of the stuff that Eric and the rest of us were doing over 20 years ago. He's not just coming here to run for mayor. He's been here, and he will continue to be here. All right, a lot of people are running for different reasons. I'm not disparaging anybody. Anybody who wants to run can run. But in the crises that our people have been through, he's the only person that's been there consistently over the last 30 years.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Ladies?
Eric and I go way, 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 way back. And I read a New York Times article where Eric essentially said, you know, my dad was a mentor to him. So this goes deeper than politics with Eric and I. But, you know, I also want to acknowledge that we have a sister in the race as well, right? And, you know, I think you're absolutely right. It's time for folks to step up, right, and really utilize their skills to bring the city out of a very dark place.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I think the pandemic kind of magnified what was
course
going in the
it
city,
did.
but all these issues have been present for years.
Exactly. Just pull the covers off.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know, Eric and others are more than capable. But I do have a special place, without officially endorsing anyone, right? I do have a very special place in my heart for Eric. He's a member of our family.
And he's a polar bear, too.
Yeah.
So I'm very special with that because my girls are polar bears.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah, so it's a special place.
Yes, yes.
Special
polar
place.
bear.
Coney Island.
Right.
First day of the year.
Oh, don't.
Does he participate in that?
Yes.
Yes, he has.
Eric Adams, yes.
What?
Yes, my girls were right there with him.
Eric is
You're kidding.
serious.
They were
I
out
thought only
there.
white people did
Wow.
Polar
that.
bears, no.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
He
misconception.
did that in Russia years ago.
Wow.
Polar bears, yes.
Moscow.
Yeah.
Listen.
He went to represent the department in Russia.
Wow.
And he did that in Russia back in the 80s.
Yep.
What?
So,
Yeah.
yes. And if I might say, Maya Wiley,
Yes.
another friend of mine. I've done some things with Maya, a very commendable woman. High integrity. So if you don't know who to vote for, I can only say the only two people you can vote for are Eric and Maya. And then from there, you're going to have to break it down for yourself.
For yourself. Yep. Yep. I
Oh,
have to. Go ahead. No, I don't want to interrupt.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
So I listen. I have to share an Eric Adams story. We're talking about integrity, right? A few years ago, not even, maybe a year and a half, we were kind of talking about the city politics and races, and I loosely, or my brother loosely mentioned that I may run for public office, and somehow we started talking about health and exercise and diet, and for those that, like, Eric is so passionate about taking care of your health and your
Yes.
diet.
Yeah, he
Took
talks
care of
about
his,
that
himself
last
and his
night.
mother.
Woo! And so I mentioned to him, you know, at that time, I'm in like campaign shape. You know, I eat a lot, I go out to restaurants, talk to people. After this race, I'll start running again and getting back to my like physical, muscular shape, Stacy shape. But at the time, I was in very good shape, working out 3 or 4 times a week. And I mentioned to Eric, yeah, I work out like 4 times a week. And the conversation just shifted. And we just started talking about health, exercise, working out. And the meeting stopped. And he said, come across the street with me. Let's go back to my office. And he gave me a stack of books, then gave me a number to a dietitian, and would check in on me to make sure that I'm doing the right thing when it comes to like my health, diet, exercise, and just overall quality of life. And so that's why I'm saying, like, you know, we have some amazing candidates running for mayor, and, you know, Maya and Eric, you know, both have very special places in my heart. But Eric, we have a deep personal family
Yeah.
relationship with him.
I can understand that. And one of the things, too, that I have been listening to a lot of the candidates that are running for the mayorship. And one of the things that I'm looking for, we do have the ranked voting.
Yes.
So that's an opportunity
Absolutely.
for people to weigh it out. But a lot of people I had not heard about prior. And when I look at some of the candidates, not only where they lived, but the commitment of integrity, having gone through the I call the scrubbing of the floor and being able to relate. Housing issues. Housing issues are key. Being in a position as the mayor for appointing the commissioners for housing, HPD, the police commission. The police department. I'm looking, Parks Department. All of these positions that will call for an appointment by the mayor. That's when I really dig down deep and I look through all of the candidates to see where I think they will fit in. I'm not interested in the sound bites. I'm very concerned about what they consider to be affordable housing.
Absolutely.
I'm concerned with that. I'm concerned with what the relationship would be with the mayor of the city of New York and how he or she will interact with the city council. Do they understand the parameters? Do they understand the impact? How he or she will interact with the borough president, with the district attorney's office, okay, the congressional. And where I live in a Mitchell-Lama co-op. And I am very concerned because as a council person running for any district, you need to know the various forms of housing that's in your
district.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And
Well,
how
we're-
the
we're-
impact
we're
is
supposed
going
to
to
have
work.
William Allen on the phone today.
How
I
it's
don't know what
how
happened
it's
to
going to
William.
work because that's important.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about single room occupancy, and we're talking about engaging people to come back into the city or into the community that have been incarcerated. So this is not a one size. You're going to have some real down deep ideology.
Yeah.
Don't want to hear that you're going to bring 500,000 or 600,000 jobs. How are you going
How
to do
will
it?
you do it?
And where are you going to get the money?
Right.
And even with the council, the city council race, what are you going to do with your congressional funds?
Right.
How are you going to come back? You talked about education, so I am happy to hear that.
Explain that. Congressional funds, how a council
Each
person.
council, yes, the
What
council,
does a council person get to do with congressional funds? I'm curious.
they
to
have
hear.
discretionary funds.
Explain
And
that.
yes, discretionary. They can
So you
give
as a council
fundings.
person have congressional
Discretionary,
funds?
discretionary.
We have discretionary funds.
Discretionary
Yeah.
funds.
Yeah.
Discretionary. What does that mean?
So each council member receives discretionary funds that we can
What kind of money?
actually allocate. We can allocate. It's public money. It's tax dollar money that
What kind of money we talking?
a few $100,000.
Yes.
A few $100,000.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
No,
Yes.
I get to pick my councilman who gets a couple $100,000.
A few $100,000. Yes. And if you are a CBO, you can, receive discretionary funding from your council member.
That's correct. Not-for-profits.
Non-for-profits.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
There are
Organization
non-for-profits that
Yes.
receive $40,000, $50,000 from
So if
their.
I need funds for the Boys and Girls Club, I come straight to you.
Well, I have to get elected first. Let's get me into office first.
And on that note,
Boys and Girls Club of Harlem, here we come.
on that note, again, I'm looking very, very strongly at how that happens because I don't remember the exact amount of money that the federal government is going to put into New York City.
Yeah.
There's like almost $1 billion, a couple of billions of dollars that's coming in.
Yeah.
And that's all going to be a part of how these monies are
larger
going to be
plan.
spent.
Yes.
So we have to get more engaged. And even though you're looking at the presidency, you have to look at your local.
Absolutely.
You have to
Right.
look at your local
Most
because,
important.
yes, it is most
Politics are
important. You
local.
have to look at your local. You have to understand where these dollars are going to go. And I'm looking at the organizations that always receive funding. Are they really putting out the best? Are they as sustainable
Yeah.
and with proficiency for the needs? Because the needs have changed. You talked about education.
Absolutely.
We talked about how this here virus has pulled the covers off of everything. Health, education, housing, police brutality.
Sure.
All of that. So when we really look and sit down to the nit and gritty,
Yeah.
I want to see some funding that's put into education, remote learning.
Yeah.
We talked about that on this show earlier.
We've got 30 seconds
And people
left.
didn't realize that our children were most affected because they did not have the Wi-Fi. They couldn't do the
resources,
connection.
the tablets, the internet. Yeah.
Welcome to, thank you for coming to the Gilchrist Experience. It's been an education for me. I'm learning as we all are. But stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist Experience. The God in me loves the God in you. And stay tuned for more. Stacy will be back.
Yes.
As council person.
Yes.
Now we got another
Amen.
minute for the Bronx.
Right.
All right? Because we're going to support the Boys and Girls Club of Harlem.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, Stacey,
All right.
I'm looking forward to you
Thank you
becoming
so
the
much.
council
Right.
person.
Thank you so
I cannot
much.
vote. It's not in my district.
Spread the
But
word.
I have
This
to
is
spread
this
the
is
word.
God's plan.
Yes. Spread
And
the
I gotta
word.
say, I really caught goosebumps.
Thank you so
because
much.
I had no idea
Yes.
until I was
This has
told
been a
that
good
you
one.
was Bill Lynch's daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And I
This
said,
is-
but that
this is-
man was so supportive
See-
of me when
see?
I was out there as
See,
a
I
woman.
told you God
Yes.
puts things
God
together.
is in the mix.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
whatever
Power to
he's
the
in
people.
the mix.
Absolutely.
In the
And
mix.
Listen,
Again.
we're in a wonderful
Again.
time, right? And we have Eric, Maya, myself running for council. So this is a great
That's
moment.
what I'm saying.
Great moment.
It's beautiful.
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
God in me loves the God in you.
Awesome.
Stacy,